Hello. Okay, so next in the Pantograph Design School series, I want to talk about extended width pantographs. So I use extended width pantographs all the time in my own studio, but I have avoided selling any until I've explained what they are. Now they are simple to use, but you do need to feel comfortable using a trimming tool on your Longarm. So basically, you've got two types of design. You've got an edge to edge and you've got an extended width pantograph. An edge to edge, your start and stop point are on exactly the same horizontal axis. So that means that you basically have a design and then it repeats and it repeats and it repeats. Whereas an extended width, your start and stop point tend to be underneath each other. So rather than stitching out a full thing and then stitching out the next repeat and then stitching out the next repeat, your design will go fully from left to right, down a bit, right to left, down a bit, left to right, and continue. Yeah? So, the extended width pantographs open up a whole possibility of the types of design that can be stitched on a quilt, and it means that you can have designs that aren't exact repeats, so they're way more interesting. So this video is more about the functionality of an extended width rather than how to draw them. So there's one in here I use all the time called Waves. I drew it for a customer a while ago, but I found it's one of the most useful designs that I've got in my collection. At the time, I didn't draw wide enough because it was for a specific quilt, so I'm using this opportunity to redraw it. So I've created one wavy line that's 120 inches wide by 4 inches tall. I'm just going to copy and paste the wave at 1 inch repeats and then just joining the edges. I don't want too many waves because I'm limiting the number of people who could use this, because then obviously more waves you need a larger machine throat space. So when I'm happy, I'm going to import it into Art and Stitch, check that it works, and then import it into my Longarm. I've raced through all of that. If you want more details on how it's drawn, how it's loaded, then I'd recommend watching the videos before this one. But I want to talk about this bit, which is loading and stitching the pantograph. So I'm going to start with a 69 by 69 inch square quilt. Okay. So first thing, I'm going to load the quilt. Obviously, this takes way longer than this. So now to set up the pattern. The quilt size, the 69 inch square, is in the box that's outlined in red. And you see that when I import the pattern into the pad, it is just massive compared to the quilt. So there are a few steps in setting up this design. So firstly, I want to stitch this at about 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to shrink the design so the gaps between the waves are what I want, and my machine has this useful little ruler function. Next, I need to create an all-over pattern. And so with my design highlighted, I'm going to keep pressing more in my edge-to-edge tool until the waves comfortably cover the whole quilt. You'll see that the design has no start and stops in the pattern, which I am going to fix in a minute. I never trim the bottom of the quilt until I get down there. But yeah, that's just my personal preference because I live in fear of shrinkage. The next step is to trim down the pantograph based on the machine head, which is the crosshairs here. So I always stitch past the edge of my quilt and then I trim based on where the machine head is. So everyone's different, everyone's got their own way of doing this. And yeah, maybe I'll make a video like that in the future. Finally, I want to add in the stops because this whole pantograph is just one line and obviously so much larger than my machine throat depth. The grey box is my sew zone, and the reason I've waited until this point to add in start and stops is for maximum efficiency. So this is because I want to use the full throat depth of the machine. Now obviously the throat space will decrease as the quilt gets larger, and that's why I want to add in the stops as I go. Now, obviously, huge time gap here. That I've stitched a pass, I'll move the quilt forward and I've realigned, and then this is when I want to add in another stop point, which is based on the sew zone. So adding in the stops as I go is because I'm a bit of a lazy quilter and I want to move the quilt forward as few times as possible. So whilst I'm here and just filling in time, I'll tell you about my 2-screen setup, because honestly, I cannot recommend buying a second screen enough. So both of my screens show exactly the same thing, but by having an additional screen, it means I'm able to sit down to set up the pantograph, which is an absolute game changer. So it makes such a difference to the usability of the Longarm, but for almost not a lot of cost. I think the screen was about £100. So fast forward, and we have the finished quilt. So I find myself using this pattern a lot because it's a very fast stitch out, and the waves hide any misalignments, so your quilt and piecing don't need to be completely straight, as they would with very horizontal pantographs. And yeah, hopefully that was helpful. So this pattern is available on the Dastardly Quilt Studio website. This video will be sent out the mailing list along with discount code, because I'm still trying to move people from Etsy to Shopify. So sign up to the mailing list, always a little plug. I've also put some free designs on the website too, so go have a look. Yeah, I'll continue to film this video series and let me know if there's anything you want to see in particular. Thank you for watching.